It's going to take smart, logical thinking and compassion for our fellow human to make this a positive change. Because let's face it, let's look at things the way they are, and they are good. They are not good. As a child, I'm almost 30 now, but as a child, I knew somewhere inside me that the world was in major trouble for my grandkids. As a child, I knew that. I think a lot of us in my generation were born with that sensation. It could be a hybrid thing. Maybe that's how I knew, but I think a lot of people sense that. It's obvious. So thank God 2012 is coming and we've got a chance to change, but we don't have to make it better. We can continue down the same path if we want to. I don't think that's going to happen because I think everybody's about fed up, but I think a basic simple change will be just start caring about each other. I think if we just change that we're probably good. That's probably the most productive thing we can do. And people are funny when they know that this change is coming. It's going to be a mass evolution of our species, and it's already happening. If you don't believe that, look back at the last 2 years, what's happened in the history of these last 2 years. The magnitude of the events that have happened in the last 24 months, if you would have known before that, a lot of people probably would have jumped off a bridge as opposed to go through it. So that's the good news. You can make it through this, and you already have. It won't get easier here for a while. This is a massive change, and we're not there yet, but you can do this. You can do this. It's not, nothing's ever as bad as it seems. So, but yeah, to somewhat touch on, a lot of people say, when will we get more open contact? When will they stop hiding? Well, guys, they're worried we're going to kill them. That's why they hide. And I would say that's probably a good idea. I would do the same thing if I had the capability to. I really would. That's entirely up to us, whether or not we'll get more open contact. And we want open contact. We need help. Big time. And when they look down and they see things like racism still happening on our own planet, how do you work with that as someone from another planet? I mean, seriously, put yourself in their shoes. What would you anticipate to happen if you saw a species of people that by and large treat people of other races? I wouldn't say by and large. We've made great strides there, but I think we're on a very slippery slope of going back to some racial problems in this world. But how would you feel about going down there knowing you look a heck of a lot different than the other people that freaks them out? And knowing their violent nature. Come on. These are beings that live incredibly long lifespans, and that's important to them, and it should be to all of us, too. We want to stay alive as long as possible. That's as common sense as things get. And we don't have that down either. Not even close. That said, we've got some pretty ridiculous forces going against us at this point, but that said, our population's also been growing exponentially for the last 100 years as well. We've gone from, 1 billion to 7 billion people? Think about that. Understanding exponential growth is incredibly important. How things just snowball upwards at a certain point. We're at that point. Whether we're right at the breaking point or not, well, it's impossible to say really, because I don't think there's been any society quite like ours, certainly not on this planet. But will we get more open contact? I think we're going to see a lot more of their ships. Right now there's a weird deal going on with that I really don't want to get too into, but I think that's going to be seen pretty clearly, and it already has, to be honest. And we've still got some time to go, so. But I don't expect to see many beings on the ground anytime very soon. But on a mass level. I've seen them. Other people have seen them. That'll continue to happen, and that may increase some. On an individual one-on-one basis where they trust the individual not to hurt them. And they trust for it not to hurt the individual too much as well. That's important also. But yeah, whether we get more open contact, it's up to us. Another thing I get asked sometimes is if there's any certain rituals or chanting I do, or different types of crystals or whatever that I'll use. And I've heard of people doing this. I haven't done any of that really. I honestly, I don't even know how to meditate. I don't know where to start. Nor am I too concerned about learning. I think I probably do the same thing in my mind that people do when they're meditating, just a different way. But I don't know what it's like since I don't know much about it. But no, I don't do any of that. I don't find that necessary. So that's a quick answer to that. And right on cue here, I'm going to switch topic to something else that I've been meaning to touch on, and maybe this is a sign that I need to do that. Either way, it's kind of fascinating, and a lot of people realize it. I've had some amazing synchronicity going on lately. And this happens to me from time to time. And what synchronicity is, if you don't understand, the most common way people see it is the condition when you look at a clock and you see a time such as 11:11, or I just saw 3:33 in the afternoon on my clock here, right as I looked at it. 1:11, 2:22, 4:44. A lot of people get this, and this absolutely has to do with the aliens, the angels. So if you have that going on, they're trying to get your attention. How does that happen? Well, what are the forces behind that? Which is a heck of a question for me. And from what I can gather, and this is my opinion and my personal experience with it, this is not direct information. But all I can make of it is they're just trying to get your attention, to make you understand something's up. There's no statistically good reason that you would keep looking at the clock at that time. Myself, many people, and myself certainly included, I wake up at that time. I wake up, I'll go to the kitchen to get a drink of water. There it is, 3:33 in the morning. I mean, that happens all the time, or 3:34, meaning took me a minute to get up and scratch my ass and make it to the kitchen. So if you have that going on, you need to look into this further. See where it takes you. And I don't know if they have like some sort of button they push on it, it triggers your brain to look at the clock, or what the heck it is. But maybe a timer. I have no clue. They're standing next to you interdimensionally and they just nudge you and you look at the clock while you're sleeping. I'm not sure what happens there, but that's what it is. It's them. I have no question about that. And a lot of people who are abductees report being psychic. And being psychic is largely misunderstood. And this is direct information on that, if you've ever experienced a psychic premonition, or many of them, which most abductees have. It all has to do with telepathy, which we just don't understand, but telepathy accounts for a lot of what we don't understand. It really does. And when you get what you believe is a psychic premonition, what it really is it's a being that uses telepathy better than you do, which is pretty easy to do, because we don't use it much at all. It's one of those beings telling you something just ahead of time, and they'll do that for different reasons too. Sometimes that's to get your attention. I figure much like the clock, but the reason that they usually do it, that I've found out, is so that event strikes you with some significance. It's like a big blinking red neon arrow pointing towards whatever it is that you had the psychic premonition about. Like, wow, I knew that was going to happen ahead of time. It's fascinating. Unfortunately, we usually follow that point to, how did I do that? I'm psychic. I have these superpowers. No, I thought that for a while too. They just whisper something into your head in a way that, unless you really understand telepathy, which almost none of us do, I've got plenty to learn still. And that's going to be important to our society, telepathy, but they're just trying to get you to pay attention to certain things that they know are important to you. That's all. And I've never heard once, of course I guess it'd be tough since a person would be dead, but I never heard once of someone whispering telepathically in someone's head to drive out in front of a semi-truck. Go, it's all clear. I've never... I don't think that happens for these people who wonder about the intentions of the beings that I'm talking about. Not saying they're all good, that's for sure. There's good and bad in everything, but it's all relative as well. Everybody's good in their own mind. And the other guy's bad, so this good versus evil thing is really kinda... Hey, we all got our choices to make in life. And there are beings out there that I would say yes are quote-unquote bad, absolutely, in my opinion. But I try not to get too hung up on it, because I think it's always good to put yourself in the other being's shoes, not even persons at times, but the other being's shoes, and realize that they're probably working for what they think is good. I mean, it's a sticky situation. The sign, the yin and the yang, is always interesting to me, and I think it's an incredibly brilliant design, because one really needs the other to exist. There are forces that rely on each other, even though it's like in a the whole thing in school, you put two magnets next to each other and they push away from each other, that sort of deal. Yet they still hold each other together as well. That's controlled our societies for a long time now, and has caused most of the wars we've had. But the fighting against each other is insane. We gotta learn to wrap ourselves around each other, kind of like the yin and the yang, and work together, no matter what our point of view. And it's not that hard. It just takes a mutual effort to respect one another. Which brings me to something interesting that I want to talk about, and that's religion and science. Humans seem to have an innate ability to always find somebody doing something wrong, the bad guy, someone to blame, and very slowly look at themselves when it comes to what's right and wrong. Because there's not an individual listening to this that hasn't done some things that a lot of people would say is wrong. That's just life. But religion and science are incredibly bad at this right now, and have been for a while. And the truth to religion and science is they're both inherently flawed in a couple different ways that would be very easy to fix.